out, and we'll be awarding prizes to the winners on Demo Friday. And there is a group photo right after this. And we're going to go out here, and there's a white tent over on the side, so follow the directions right when we're done after Lee's done. And as we have traditionally now started to do, once the whole group photo is done, and this is a handsome group, so it's going to be a very good photo, we know that, the steering committee. So if you're any member of a steering committee should stay afterwards, and we'd like to take a picture of all the steering committee members, okay? Okay, pretty straightforward, right? Okay. So I'd like to introduce the CEO of Linaro, Lee Gong. Please welcome.
I was very curious to learn that it was the Chinese that started eating bacon that long ago, because just last night I read an article about my family's surname, the history of that, and I was surprised to learn last night that my family, that particular surname first existed 2,300 years ago. So my ancestors must have been eating some of those Chinese bacon, but I did not grow up with bacon in the 60s, 70s. So that's an interesting.
You don't look that old.
Okay, yes. Good. So welcome to this nice place, and as Joe was saying, we look for a very busy week, but very nice week with hopefully better breakfast tomorrow and nice food all around. I also want to repeat that Linaro is not a very commercial operation, so we certainly appreciate all the sponsors. I want to start by giving you an update, just a quick update on where Linaro is in terms of the company. So if you recall, especially if you want to connect, last time, at the start of the year, we ran into a little financial turbulence, and so we made some changes to the company, and I'm happy to report that if you fast forward to today, and by the way, our fiscal year ends the end of this month, so we are literally in the final week of our fiscal year. And so we are meeting the financial goals that we have set earlier this year. So of course, that's subject to accounting and final audit, but we're very happy that we have made that particular goal. And apart from financial, we are also making lots of changes in terms of work that we are actually doing, because the industry that we are in has been changing, right? So individual companies have been evolving with their requirements. So what they're interested in today are very different from what they were interested in 5 years ago. And also there are many new players coming into this segment, right? For example, if you roll back the clock to the 70s, to the 80s, SoC vendors were driving everything, right? Now you have operating system people, you have the cloud players, and they are playing an increasingly important role in terms of determining what sort of silicon is more appropriate for their purposes, right? So we really need to consider the bigger picture. So I will return to this subject slightly later in my own talk, right here. The other major event that happened since our last Connect was the so-called, was that Huawei has been put on the so-called entity list by the US government. And that's impacting our industry as a whole, and certainly impacting Linaro in many ways. I want to spend a few minutes really talking through this situation, because there has been lots of confusion, lots of misconception of how we see the situation, how we responded to it, and where we go from here, right? So I want to, for people who are really experts in this field, I'm going to bore you for the next couple of minutes, but hopefully I can explain what's happening. So this event unfolded in stages, right? So initial phase is, I actually remember, so I was actually in Beijing, visiting potential members, and it was the day before I was flying back to the Bay Area, sitting there having a coffee meeting with people, and then somebody said, oh, there's US sanctions against Huawei. I said, oh, that's nothing, because the day before there was a sanction saying the US government wasn't buying Huawei equipment. And I thought, okay, that's not news, right? So that has been happening. No, the guy said, no, it's a new one. And I think my reaction was the same with many other people. The first thing is, okay, you look up the news, you Google it, you find, okay, what is this? Entity list, I've never heard of this thing. And you sort of, okay, what is this thing, right? And you call a few people, you call your peers, you call your lawyers, friends, and you get an initial reaction of what this is, right? And what you get is basically, situation is very, very complex. The law is fairly vague. If you want to be, if you want to stay on the right side of the law, you better be careful, right? So basically, we decided, okay, first let's pause any interaction. Let's do some more consultation, talk to more lawyers, talk to more peers, and figure out what the situation is, right? So that's, I think, the first reaction to the situation. As we learn more, we start to decide what's the right thing to do, what's not possible, and then you have more conversations and you get into this loop. And we're still in this loop today because A, the situation keeps changing, external situation keeps changing. B, people get more, different interpretation of what the law is, and the U.S. government also is involved in interpreting some specific rules of operations, right? So we're still in this loop. What I want to emphasize is that in no way that there's any hostility towards Huawei from our side, right? Or from member companies that, as far as I could see, right? People are very calmly dealing with a situation that mostly are not familiar with, right? 6 months ago, nobody really, I think most of the people here didn't pay attention, didn't really know what the rules are, right? Now we are fast becoming expert. But anyway, so that's the first phase. And so what's the current status? So where, after so many loops, where we are today, right? So we have reached a few understandings. Number one is that it's okay to engage with Huawei on non-technical matters. For example, Huawei still sits on the Linaro board. We could have business discussions. We could have engagement model discussions. We can talk about strategy. We can talk about stuff, right? But technology transfer discussion is a separate thing. So we can have general engagement. And secondly, it's okay to engage in activities that benefit Huawei financially or otherwise, either directly or indirectly. For example, it's okay to test Huawei equipment, run stuff, fix bugs that make the Huawei equipment work better, as long as you follow the export rules and you don't directly transfer technology to Huawei, right? And also, this company called FutureWay is the US subsidiary of Huawei, which is not on the entity list, and is just like another US company that has to be compliant with all the export rules that we can fully engage, we can fully engage with Huawei, with FutureWay. And FutureWay has also provided written explanation of what their thinking is and how they are complying with the US rules, right? And of course, there are other Huawei companies outside of the US in other countries where they're not on the entities list. So we can also engage with them as long as they are compliant with the US re-export rules, right? Having said that, there are complications because Linaro is not only just a company in itself. Linaro is a member organization, so what we could do is also subject to what each individual member companies might decide, what their best practice is, right? So So for example, we could say, okay, it's okay for, in general, to engage with future employees. A member company might have their own guidance in terms of how they want to interface with future. So we're not going to be doing the lowest common denominator for all member companies. However, we need to be aware of and respectful to each member company's own choices, right? So that makes our life slightly harder, right? The other thing that makes the situation complicated to us, for us, is that some other open source organizations or foundations have made public statements saying that nothing has changed for them. It's all kosher, everything is just the same as before. And those are, to the best of my knowledge and according to legal advice that I've been getting, those declarations are oversimplified. It actually doesn't match the reality of what's happening, right? So those for example, is Huawei employees should be able to participate in open source projects, right? Sounds very simple, and it's sort of true, except you want to qualify that, is that because there are so many different open source projects, right? It's not, you can't just label something, say open, and therefore you can actually do it. It all depends on how you conduct that open source project, right? So if everything is conducted in the open, meaning that all discussion is in the open, published, all exchanges are published, all the code review, whatever is happening in the public forums, then yes, it's completely open participation. But if you have closed-door meetings where it's member-only meetings, then it becomes vague, because is that private discussion that you have just had in the members' meeting, or is it intended to be published later, right? And what's the status of this information between the time you discuss it and the time you publish it, right? So how do you deal with this? So this whole range of issues that are pretty vague. So we are still not done on this issue. So I look forward to more discussions with Huawei and also with member companies to try to figure out what's the best operating model going forward. So that's probably a whole load of stuff that you probably don't want to, it's not what you expect to hear here, but I do want to get it out there so that we know where we stand. Okay, so next I want to return to something that I mentioned earlier, is that industry is changing, so Linaro has to make changes to keep up. And if you look at Linaro, if you are familiar with Linaro, I think most people are, is that we are known for very strong contribution to the Linux world, right? We are one of the top, where's the, yes, I should, okay. So I'm not going to through those data, but 8,000 gallons of coffee consumed at Connect. That's quite a bit of coffee. And how many gallons per person? That's a big number. But if you look at this, right? So those are the things that we're known for. We're very, very strong, right? And we will keep doing those, right? That's not a question. The question is, many of our member companies have now evolving requirements that go beyond what this is, right? For example, if you look at the ARM server space or HPC or supercomputing space, right? If you try to make this server stack competitive with the x86 stack, then you can't just say, I have a good kernel, I have good firmware, or I have good tools, or the same tools run there, right? You really have to have the entire stack ready, because a cloud or an infrastructure provider cannot deploy competitively unless the entire stack is lined up with high quality software, right? So also, for example, if you look at Windows on ARM, right? Microsoft is doing Windows on ARM laptop. I just bought the newest Huawei laptop, eMate 20 or something, 5,000 RMB. You can buy it in China. I don't think you can buy it here. The latest generation of Qualcomm chipset, very long battery life, Office included, and you don't need a charger for the entire day, right? And it's mobile. You put in your SIM card. It's always on. So, and Windows laptop and Windows on servers, those are important for the ARM ecosystem, right? And in fact, if you, by the way, we got this from ARM, right? So that's why you see the ARM logo there. So if you look at the ARM ecosystem, it's much larger than Linux or kernel or open source or tools, right? So what we want to do is that we want to expand our scope. While we keep doing the traditional work that we're strong at, right? Linux kernel, tools, and all the stuff, security stuff. We also want to, we want to go up the stack. We want to be able to help companies where they require to work on higher levels of software that will make their product competitive. Secondly, we want to go beyond just the Linux OS, right? Because if you look at the ARM ecosystem from embed, you have the embed, right? You have Windows, you have a whole range of other operating systems that are also very important to ARM and to some of our member companies. So the second thing we want to do is to go beyond just the Linux world, right? And out of this, you have probably realized that what I'm describing is also that we are going to not limit ourselves to purely open source software. Because if you look at any member company who is deploying product, it's quite often it's going to be a combination of open source or non-open source product. So we don't want to limit ourselves religiously, saying that we only work on open source. We are here to help accelerate product development for our member companies for the entire ARM ecosystem. So we want to go where our member companies go, right? So the reason I'm saying all of this is to convey the notion and to let people know that we are ready to move beyond the traditional field. So we really want to open up our engagement with member companies and then bring in new members where we can engage with them on all the other stuff that's happening, very, very exciting beyond the traditional work. So I welcome more discussion there. Since we started going down this path a few months ago, we have gotten fairly good positive feedback from the member companies that we have been engaged with in these discussions. Most of those discussions take some time to come through the process. So there are not much announcements that I can make today to tell you publicly. But what I can say is that we have made lots of progress. So you should expect lots of exciting stuff to be announced, to happen, to show up in the coming weeks or months. Right? While I was at APM, I don't know how many people were here were at the ARM partners meeting back in August. That meeting was held under NDA, so I can't really repeat exactly what was discussed. But I guess I can safely say that Simon Segars, the CEO of ARM, during his keynote, announced a major architectural initiative where Linaro is going to be working together with ARM and alongside a few very heavy industry hitters, very hitters in our industry, to make that happen, right? So, and tomorrow Deepash Patel, the president of the IoT Services Group, which has Embed and Tallinn and some other product. He's going to keynote tomorrow. So I'm very eager to hear, to look forward to hearing what he has to offer. And we have a few other things cooking, so I hope that by the next Connect, I will be able to share with you more details of the kind of things that we are going to do following this strategy. Now, the final part of my talk, I want to bring up a few member companies to say a few words about what their thinking is, what their hotspot is, and what they're working on. So the first, I want to bring up Mark Hambleton. Mark doesn't need introduction here at Connect, but for the few people who don't know Mark, Mark is the Vice President of Open Source Software at ARM, has been a very active Linaro participant for many years, and is currently also the chair of the board of Linaro. Okay. And where's your microphone?
I've got one.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry.
Yeah, hopefully you can hear me. Thanks, Lee. So somebody said we were coming to Paradise, so I dressed appropriately. I thought, occasionally when I do keynotes, they get me to stand on stage in suits and things. And Dave, thank you. Yes, thank you, Ian. Dave has been reminding me of this all morning, so I figured I would dress appropriately for the location. I actually thought I'd stand up here and see if I could do this whole talk using quotes from Green Day. So, welcome to Paradise. We'll start with that one. So, as Lee said, I've been involved with Linaro for quite some time now. I think my first Connect was Copenhagen, November 2012. The second one was actually Hong Kong, Gold Coast in March 2013, where we brought Broadcom in as club members. And so I think my first day as a club member was actually starting to join all the steering committees. So I'm kind of going through what some of the people that are about to come on stage are just about to experience back in 2013. So Linaro's changed a whole bunch since then. I'm obviously not at Broadcom anymore. I have the privilege of leading the open source software group in ARM. But we've seen the segment groups grow. We've seen some of them disappear as they've metamorphosized into other things. But at the moment, there are two things that really excite me about Linaro. I think you'll have heard me stand on stage talking about edge computing about 18 months ago in Hong Kong. I think that was the big keynote slot. Edge computing to me is where lots of really difficult things come together. Security and communications, ownership and privacy, all of that stuff is a big melting point that we need to kind of figure out to make sure we are secure, but we're also able to use the compute flexibly. So we created Ledge. It's been in incubator mode for about 12 months now, and I think it becomes a proper segment group now, right? That's one of the things that happened between these last two Connects. So for me, that's huge, because this is a big growth area for ARM technology and for Linaro, and getting that right is really important. But at the board meeting in July, the board also asked Linaro to form an automotive group. Now, lots of people, when you say automotive, they immediately jump to thinking about autonomous drive. And yes, that's important. In a few years' time, autonomous drive will be the big thing that everybody is talking about. We won't be driving anymore. The cars will be driving ourselves, and the world will be a safer and better place. I believe that. At some point, that will happen. I honestly would be happy never to drive a car ever again already. I'm bored with it. I live in Surrey, in the southeast of England, and it's gridlock. I would much rather just sit and watch the TV rather than watch the back of the BMW in front of me, or any other vehicle, but there's a lot of those. So it's particularly exciting for this Connect because we've got we're actually kicking off an automotive working group where we're focusing on the automotive technologies that are needed now. There's a bunch of stuff that's interesting to member companies that are necessary for the ADAS technologies that are being fitted into cars now. But there's also the next question, right? What are the technologies that you need to build autonomous systems? And I don't think anybody really knows the answer to that. And so why don't we start talking about it? So to me, automotive has this big component which is now, which is real engineering that we can work on now. I keep saying now, because there is a big now component. But then there's this how do we get companies together to talk about what the engineering challenges are for next? So that's it. That's what's exciting me at the moment. It's those new challenges. And I think that's it from me. Okay? Thank you.
So next, I want to introduce Rob Oshana. He's VP of Software at NXP. And NXP has just become the newest club member here. So welcome on stage and tell us more about NXP and what you think.
Thanks, Lee. Joe, you have the mic? I'm not wired. Oh. That's all right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay, so yeah, it's good to be here. If I look familiar, it's because I do come to Connect quite often. We've been a member of Linaro for quite some time. Back when I was at Freescale, we actually were a founding member of Linaro, so it's something that we actually have been involved in quite some time. But back in those days, things were simpler. Like at Freescale, we were really interested in networking, so we participated in the networking group. But as things changed, we started contributing more or participating more. IoT became very big and edge computing, so we're doing a lot now with Kumar's group and Light. And then things continue to change. New verticals have emerged, and so we're participating more in the consumer group as well. You heard Mark just talk about automotive and the things going on there. Machine learning is becoming really big. And in NXP, we've merged a bunch of technologies across the different businesses, at least on the software side. And so now it's really the right time to really leverage Linaro even more than we have in the past. And so that's really why we've become a club member. Looking forward to participating in these additional groups. Again, things are moving very rapidly. Open source is a very strategic part of our business. In fact, my boss is talking to our CEO tomorrow, and one of the key software messages will be telling the board is that open source is a fundamental part of our whole strategy. So it's good to be part of this in an increasing level. And Joe Bates has promised that at the club level, I will bring home the bacon, right, Joe? So I'm going to bring home the bacon. And Mark, I'm dressed for paradise too, just in a different context. So anyway, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you. Lots of bacon. So finally, I want to bring up Thomas Everson, who is the CTO of embedded software at Xilinx. And he's coming up to talk about OpenAMP, which has just become a part of Linaro. So, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Can you switch the slide? Yeah. So really happy to be here for our relaunch of OpenAMP. You might think, wait a minute, haven't that guy talked about OpenAMP for some time now? But now we have a logo, and that's a big thing, right? And speaking of that logo, for the nerds out there, we actually spent some time doing that. So in the OpenAMP, you can see the connection between the heterogeneous P's, the lowercase p, so that's our two processors being connected. So that's what we spend our time doing in our little group. No, but really now we relaunched it as a Linaro community project, and it's an independent project, and we work on open source, of course, around heterogeneous computing in embedded, so anything from messaging from lifecycle management. Now we go into configuration and things like that, working with devicetree.org on the system device trees. So it's sort of a mix of an open source project. We're trying to standardize various things so you can plug and play different operating systems. And one of the big things is that we have RTOS vendors that are participating. So we have some of the founding members like Wind River and Mentor, but we also have a bunch of other RTOS vendors that are on a regular basis part of the meetings as well. We do have these 7 founding companies here, but we also have a couple of other semi-vendors that just didn't make it through the legal department here. So in the next few days or weeks here, we're actually going to add to that list as well. So anyone else who is interested in all the nitty-gritty and interesting stuff on how we standardize, how we can make it easier to use different kinds of processors, please join us. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to just spend a couple of more minutes continuing this thread. And if I can go back one slide, so you look at this slide. This is a list of the community projects that we have at Linaro. What I want to say is that we love this sort of projects, and we love to host them for you, right? So trustedfirmware.org moved into Linaro earlier this year, and just this week, Opti has been merged or donated or whatever word you want to use into that project. The reason we like to host this is not because we have lots of free time, we have nothing to do, it's because beyond serving our existing members, we also want to have a wider reach into the industry, into the ARM ecosystem, where we can help, sorry, where's the other slide? Sorry, can we bring up the OpenM slide? Sorry for, I thought it's in the sequence. If it's too difficult, I can, okay, good. Because if you look at the logos there, you see a few companies that are not regularly Linaro members, but yet they have some similar pain point our member companies have, right? For example, Wind River has many customers who are our members, right? And they have the same fragmentation issues, they have the same support issues, they have the same collaborative issues, right? So we would like to also keep them in the bigger picture and try to figure out how we can help them, right? So for example, at the TAC this morning, we were talking about we're exploring the concept of a project membership, where we can engage in companies who don't necessarily become a regular member like many of your companies are. However, they bring a specific value to us, to us meaning the members, right? And we want to have some way of engaging with them and lower the barrier of entry so that we can have more partners involved, as long as they bring real value, real contribution to us, right? Remember, Linaro is a member-driven organization, so we naturally have the network effect, which means that the more members, the more people are engaged with us, it brings more benefit to other members. So the more, the better. So that's all I have here to say. And again, thank you for taking the time out to come here for this week. I hope it's an exciting week. And if you need anything, like especially if you need more bacon, just call Joe. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go out and take the group photo, follow everybody through.